Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. So today, I thought I would share all of the book clubs, reading challenges, readathons, buddy reads that I'm dipping my toes into this year. And feel free to join me. Feel free to leave a comment that I'm crazy, because I'm beginning to believe I may be, but in a very good way. So I'm not at all concerned. So first up, shameless plug. We formed a book club, and as a community, we chose Veiled in Smoke by Jocelyn Green as the first choice of the year. And I started it last night, and I'm through the first 3 chapters, and I will tell you, so far, it is amazing. I only left a comment on the app for the book club discussion for chapter 1. Could have easily read comments for chapters 2 and 3 as well, but I don't want to give too much away for everybody who hasn't started the book. As more people start the book and leave comments, I will add to it. I will tell you that there's some very profound points in the first 3 chapters. And I left the first massively profound point as a comment for chapter 1. So far, I am completely in love with this series and this book. And it will come up again. Okay. So for Booktube friends who have challenges that span the year, I'm going to talk about those first. If I don't list your challenge, it's not because I think you're a horrible person and I don't like your Booktube or your challenge. There's only so much time in the year, and I'm trying to broaden my horizons a little bit. So, first up is Jeanette's challenge, and her channel is Jane Reads, and I will link everybody down below. And her challenge is called, I'm sorry, I just flew out of my brain cells. Okay, it's right here. The Christian Fiction Challenge for 2024. Here's her graphic. And the first challenge is to start a new series. Veiled in Smoke. It's book 1 of the Windy City Saga. And perfectly lines up with my own personal challenges for this year. So, thank you, Jeanette. It's a great choice. And then there's Katie's Read Around the World challenge. And her first... And the bird is going to be mouthy. I apologize. Her first challenge is to a packing list item or on the cover. Packing list item on the cover. This book is on my TBR for January. It was part of my birthday haul, which I will link down below. That is Digging Up Daisy by Sherry Lynn. It is the first in the Mainly Murder series. And there's a pair of shoes right there. Now, I personally wouldn't pack a high-heel pair of red shoes. I would pack shoes, or foot prisons as I like to call them, because I have to wear them to go in the car, on a plane. But in general, you don't find me in shoes. But there you go. Okay, bird's been fed. So next up would be the Sirens Challenge. And that is by Curatorially Yours. And this one is fun. It's just 8 prompts. Yeah, 8 prompts. Here's the graphic. Don't have to do them in any particular order. I have all the graphics printed in my binder, if there's graphics involved. And the first prompt is so perfect for me. It is TBR Temptress. I have many TBR Temptress on my shelves. And of the ones I have pulled this morning, I'm going to go with The Extraordinary Death of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunswald. This is a pure purchase because of how much Amanda, over at Book Lover Amanda, loves this book. So we shall see. And so that is just the first challenge for the Siren Challenge. Next up is, let me grab the list, Buzzwords, which is hosted by Books and Layla. And this is 12 buzzwords as they relate to reading. Here's the graphic. And apparently Pickles does not like his apples. So the first buzzword is for January is there, or there. And excuse me, I need to go get a bird. So for the first prompt for January, which is I'm choosing And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. It's an audiobook from my library. It would also fulfill a Tutorial or Sirens prompt to listen to an audiobook. But you would be surprised. I have no books on my shelves with any of those words in them. So this one was actually a challenge for me. Okay. Readathons from Booktube is the Game of Tomes 2024. It is hosted by Emmy and Carolyn Marie Reed. I will link their channels and everyone else down below and their announcement videos. And this is they have a set of classics that they want to read. They're all very big and thick. And the idea is to read said classic in 2 months and then move on to the next. So the first month is The Count of Monte Cristo. I've started this. It is fantastic. It is much better than I anticipated. Like much better than I anticipated. And they're reading several things in 2024 that were on my list, including Count of Monte Cristo, Lord of the Rings, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So excuse me, I may not read every book they have on their list because I have no interest. I don't own a copy. I think I'm reading at least half of what they're reading. So January, February is The Count of Monte Cristo. I'm skipping March and April. May and June is Lord of the Rings, all 3 books. I'm skipping July and August. September and October is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And November and December is Little Women. Little Women would be a reread for me. So I'm sort of on the fence for that. But that being said, I seriously consider rereading it. And so for the months I am skipping, which are March and April and July and August, I am considering subbing in another big, thick book on my shelf that I want to read this year and utilizing that time space to read said big, thick book. So we will see. Okay, so next up would be the 52 books in 52 weeks. And this has been a long-running book club. I've never heard about it this year. Here's the graphic. I found this by luck. And the goal is to read one book a week based on the prompts, and you can interpret the prompts as any way you choose to. And some of them are very challenging and some of them are very easy for me. So I picked a couple just out of happenstance. So I love when I don't highlight things and then I need to talk about them. So one calls for a book with lowercase letters on the spine. And so I have, and this has been on my shelves for at least the last 5 years. I have both books on the duology. So it would fit, I think it's a duology at least. It would fit 2 prompts on this page, but that would be Maplecroft, which is the first book in the Borden Dispatch duology by Sherry Priest. I don't know a lot about this book. I haven't read the Black Burb, which I have probably read the Black Burb, so it's not going to count for that. But the spine is definitely all in lowercase. Trying to get a non-blurry version. So maybe I can knock those 2 books off my list. A cover without people on it. The Extraordinary Deaths of Mrs. Kipp by Sarah Brunswald. I believe there is a prompt in here. I know there's a prompt in here dealing with a book dealing with grief. That would also fit. Yep, a grieving character. So that would fit from my understanding. There's a prompt in here for a book with the word secret in the title. This is book 3 of the Brides of Hope Mountain series by Mary Keneally. It's entitled Her Secret Song. Again, it has a beautiful cover. So, all about that. Hopefully I didn't. And that's just a brief sampling of the choices in the book club reading challenge. There's things like nominated for the Booker Prize, title starting with the letter K, title starting with the letter L. Those are much harder than you would think, at least on my shelves. Time frame spans a week or less. Again, my shelves don't really lend themselves to that. Written by a ghostwriter. Another one that's going to be difficult for me. So I am looking forward to this challenge. It's going to be interesting and hopefully take me a little bit out of my reading comfort zone and expose me to some different stuff, which I'm all about. So that is that. And then wonderful Storygraph. Oh, before we do Storygraph, let's do the Readathons and read-alongs hosted by Booktube friends. There is Jeanette's, which I've already talked about. Katie's yearly one, I've already talked about. Katie does run 2 other readathons during the year. There is the Spring into Christian Fiction readathon, which happens in the month of Easter. And then there is her Journey into the Bible readathon, which happens in that last 4 months of the year. I will try to participate in both this year. Amanda's Southern Charm readathon runs in her birthday month, which is May. I participated last year. I will participate again this year. And Taylor over at Tales and Treats with Tay is running her first ever readathon in February. And she hasn't yet announced it. I know it's coming. I look forward to it, and I will participate in Tay's as well. So those are the ones I know of. I'm sure there will be others. I'm sure I will probably do another NetGalley readathon at some point this year. So we can knock NetGalley books off of the list. I'm trying very hard to do that this year. So that brings us to Storygraph. When I discovered the Fable app, I also discovered the Storygraph app. And as you know, I'm not overly active on Goodreads. I find Goodreads to be incredibly toxic. It has not changed since before Amazon purchased it and destroyed the platform. And really, the only time I log into Goodreads is to participate in a giveaway. Because the community, I find nothing redeeming about Goodreads. So I stumbled across Storygraph, watched a couple of videos. Reviews were mixed, but in one video, someone did say that you cannot comment on another person's review of a book and, attempt to invalidate an opinion. And that alone sold Storygraph for me. So I will be active on Storygraph. I am currently active on Storygraph. And Storygraph will track my stats for me. Genres, pages, number of books, all of that stuff. In fact, I put in all the books I read or DNF'd in the fourth quarter of 2023 so that I could have my year-end stats completed for me. I just need to add all the numbers together, and then I'll be in a forthcoming video this month. But between the no comment, lack of ability to have a toxic community, and the fact that it tracks stats for me, I'm very happy. It also allows fractional star reviews for a book. So if you liked it, but it wasn't great, you can give something a 2.75 stars. Or you can give something, 4.25 stars. That isn't enough for me to, give star ratings in reviews, but it is enough for me to give a star rating on the app. And I am okay with that. So if you're on Storygraph, feel free to add me as a friend. I will follow back. And I will have stats this year. And I don't have to track it. And I don't have to do the math. I am so good with that. But Storygraph does run reading challenges hosted by other members, hosted by themselves. And I found several that were very interesting to me. I may not complete every challenge in every group, but they got me to thinking. It got me to scroll through my back catalog of Kindle books and Nook books to find prompts, that could fulfill a prompt. So the ones I signed up for are the Historical Fiction Challenge, the Science Fiction Challenge, the Fantasy Challenge, and the Mystery Thriller Challenge, and the Cozy World Challenge. There's also a couple. There's a seasonal challenge. There's a classic murder mystery challenge, which is very high on my list as well. There's also the, bird time. Okay, now that I've grabbed the perpetual 2-year-old, I have... Come here. Come here. Come here. Started to pick books for the challenge. So I will just give you a couple of, for the historical fiction, read a book set in ancient Egypt. Last year I was supposed to read Cleopatra. What a great time to do that. I can sub Cleopatra in for the Great Tomes of 20 and 24 in a month in which I'm not reading a selected choice. I could knock that book out and still fulfill this. So, that works for me. Nautical is a historical fiction challenge prop. Count of Monte Cristo is nautical. Romance, Nature of a Lady by Rosanna M. White. I'm reading that with Amanda at some point this year in a buddy read. So, there are lots of ways to fulfill this. It doesn't specify anything. Science fiction has some interesting prompts as well. Post-apocalyptic. I was going to read Grasslands by Karen Travis. It's a Halo book. Fits that prompt perfectly. Romantic Element, The Guardian by Kathy McCrum, which releases next month. And it's fabulous. It's absolutely wonderfully fabulous. I might actually reread it. There, for the science fiction, there's a robot prompt and a dinosaur prompt and genetic engineering prompt. All these subgenres and prompts that I didn't know existed in science fiction. So that's interesting for my brain. Fantasy prompts, by far the most I have filled out on this list. And there's some authors I want to try. And this was a great way to do it. So, there's a mermaid prompt for fantasy. Mary Meacham has a mermaid book. Let's try that. Epic with lots of characters. I have Brandon Sanderson book number 4 on the shelf above me. It needs to be read this year because book number 5 releases. Hey, I could read that. I could also fill that in for the Game of Tomes in 2024 for the other month I'm not reading because it's a big, thick puppy. Another fantasy prompt is A Hero's Journey. And that's The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. It's another big, thick book. I wouldn't call it a classic, so I can't sub it in for the Game of Tomes, but I could read it over 2 months and give myself some grace. And that's just a sampling. Mysteries and Thrillers has sampling, and none of them are cozy in nature. Detective with substance abuse issues is one. A detective team-up. A incompetent police mystery thriller. Everybody did it. So, an example of that would be Murder on the Orient Express. And one consistent prompt that has appeared across multiple of these is dark and light academia prompts. It is in historical fiction prompt, it's in the science fiction prompt, it's in the fantasy prompt, it is now in the mystery thriller prompt. So you could probably knock a bunch of prompts out with a dark academia, light academia story. Cozies has 27 prompts attached to it. A beauty shop cozy, a St. Patrick's Day cozy, a gardening cozy, cook as a protagonist cozy. As you know, cozies are my comfort genre. I would probably have no trouble knocking this out, and I will probably knock it out. So the classic murder mystery challenge has 20 classic murder mystery books attached to it. I have read some of them. I have not read all of them. Let's see. The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. Devil in a Blue Dress by Walter Mosey. Pickles the Bird. Pickles the Bird. Come here. Come in. Step. The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. Thank you. And that's just a sampling. So it's a broad range, and it gets your mind to thinking. And do I have to fulfill every challenge that I've signed up for completely? No. Am I interested and challenged by the challenges? Absolutely. And I couldn't ask for anything better. My brain is perfectly happy with that. It gives me something to shoot for. It gives me something to, hey, nothing's working for me. Go look at the challenges and see if I can find something to read. So, that is that. So I am doing, as of this video, 2 buddy reads this year. The first one is with Taylor over at Tales and Treats with Tay, and that is Hope Between the Pages by Pepper Basham. And Nature of a Lady by Roseanne M. White with Amanda later this spring. So I'm always open for a buddy read. If I'm reading something you're interested in and you want to buddy read it, let me know. Fable is very good about doing a buddy read. And I'd be happy to host it, or we can just chat on Instagram or whatever. So feel free to join in. And I think that pretty much sums up the newly discovered challenges for 2024. It should be a very interesting reading year, and I am looking forward to it. So please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.